Media representation. Did you see the little article that I sent you?
Yeah, yeah, but go ahead, tell us what.
So pretty
I
much
mean,
it's
I
just
don't know your take actually on
okay.
it.
So it's an article from an Iranian news outlet called Fars News, and they pretty much show that when we're going to put a photo of this, but early on during the pandemic, the Iranian Ministry of Environment, anyway, the head of the Ministry of Environment,
Health, I
Health,
think health.
I thought it was Environment.
I believe deputy health minister. Anyway,
Yeah.
maybe environment
So
minister.
he was infected by coronavirus, but he was actually it was during a live recording of some kind of speech, and you could clearly see him. He was wiping sweat off his face, and he
Oh, he
didn't.
went. He went to a state television interview and he was like, the
So
best.
yeah, we could see what shape he was in. And then they pretty much point out that the article points out that anytime they talked about, him having the virus, they would show a picture of him, and not a good image of him, kind of pointing out to, what are these guys kind of doing, and maybe they're incompetence, or why is he in front of camera. And then they juxtapose that
They,
with
you didn't. The Fars News was talking about BBC Persia.
okay, so BBC Persia, but I think this could apply to any other Western media, I think, because they do this all the time. Whereas when BBC Persia showed pictures of Western politicians, Trump, Boris, having the virus, there weren't pictures of that time at all. There were just other pictures that make him, make it look good and give like a presentable picture of him. So the article was kind of pointing out at this double standard. And I think this is at the root of, we talk about all this fake news and stuff. And just like I mentioned earlier on, I don't think mainstream media does a lot of fake news in terms of saying something that is outright false. What they do is put out a lot of purposely misinformed, incomplete information that leads people to to the wrong conclusions, and their misrepresentation all the time. And this was a clear other example of showing your enemies and the people that you don't like or whatever always in one way, and on the same exact issue showing people on your side totally differently. And it reminded me of this hilarious Maz Jobrani joke. He's an Iranian American comedian. He goes on the Young Turks sometimes, and he's like, they always show this joke is from like 15 years ago, so it's super relevant back then with terrorism and all this. And he's like, they never show like an Arab doing something good, so they're never like it never shows like clip like, hi, I'm an Arab and I'm just baking a cookie, like
Uh,
something like that. It's always represented in such a negative and terrifying way. But whereas the same issues are often discussed in different ways. Or you can look at terrorist attacks. When it happens in Western countries, they do such a good job of really capturing the fear of the people. But then where it happens somewhere else, it's kind of, it's very like this kind of news thing. You don't feel the emotions and what, some of the victims and people who were there, what they were going through.
I look. I think two completely different things. First, with terrorist acts, I definitely agree that it's people are like, yet the focus in the West is much more. If there is a smaller attack in the West, it gets far more coverage. Blah blah blah. But that's, I suppose, in a way natural because that's their home country, and I'm sure if Somalia develops a strong international broadcasting company, then they would cover themselves more. Wait, wait.
Home country, but it can happen in France, and then the way the U.S. media will
France,
cover that, or other Western media outlets.
France is closer to BBC than, let's say, Nepal, right? So, yeah, to me, that's not that surprising there. But, and it, yeah, I hope it will become a more and more international place, but that makes sense. About the leaders and the Iranian thing, if they argued that, to be honest, in during Obama years, when David Cameron or more so Tony Blair, when these people were in power, I would have agreed. But in case of, for example, Boris Johnson or Trump, I think they get as shit, they're as much shat on as Iranian officials, including on BBC Persia, you know? So I think they have this, love for decorum and people speaking very nicely and calmly and saying nothing while actually saying a lot of words doesn't mean anything. Just like Obama saying beautiful words that don't mean shit, right? So they love that, and they attack everybody, including the Iranian government. Right now, I don't think Trump or Boris Johnson, for example, or for example, that guy, the idiot. He was an idiot. The idiot Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott, for example. I think they get as much shit as. I don't think there's difference. I don't think it's about racism or Arabs or Iran. It's more about decorum for them, and it's more of a class thing. Basically, they like that professional managerial class that is highly educated and stuff. And for example, that's why they love Zarif, Iranian foreign minister. He always gets a good he pretty much always gets a good coverage, except when they have this opinion piece that, oh, we know that he looks very clean and he's very nice and stuff, but behind him there are evil forces, you know. So it's more about, because why? Because he's educated in San Francisco, and he international law, blah blah blah. So I think it's more about that than racism or that type of thing.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
my
I do agree that but I mean, they hate Trump as much as, they've ever
and
hated
Boris Johnson.
anyone, and Boris Johnson. But in the article, they did show that even though they hate them so much, the pictures and the representation that they put out, even for those two, weren't, like, they weren't like horrific ones, or like, yeah,
Well,
point.
to be fair, Iranian politicians don't help themselves with their posing and dress code and everything. You can't blame everything on, you should take control of the narrative yourself to an extent. You know, he, you saw the videos of that guy.
Yeah,
He, he, wow, he
that's
was
true. No, that's
like
true.
with a fucking napkin and yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So and oh my god, yeah, there was an interviewer. Just yeah, I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know.
But
All yeah.
in general, my bigger point was that, fake news we hear about all the time, but I feel like it's taken away some of the genuine media criticism that's always existed, and it's been replaced with fake news criticism.
Oh, sure, sure, that's true. And to be honest, I just don't think there is ever everybody who gives any news has an agenda, has a bias. Like there is no
Except,
neutral
except,
news.
I mean, the big ones like CNN and all these, they kind of position themselves as international, especially CNN International, and they keep on saying, how X is objective and we're being objective and we're being objective, whereas you and I and many other people don't say this. So that's why it's much more fair to criticize them that way.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I
I
mean, there's
mean,
this
whoever
one guy on CNN. He's ridiculous. He's like the person who criticizes media.
the bald guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I know. I hate him.
He-
And he looks like he looks like a highly educated egg, basically. And
But sorry, the worst on CNN is this guy. I don't know why they got like a 50-year-old man to do videos that are meant to be for younger people on
oh
YouTube.
yeah,
I
the
mean,
guy.
I'm like, why did you guys pick? Why?
Yeah, yeah, I know the guy who does analysis on
Yeah.
YouTube. Oh
Yes.
fucking hell! I want to murder. Yeah, no, no. I'm this. By the way, this was inciting violence, but that was a joke. But yeah, I loathe him. I loathe. He thinks he's talking to 5-year-olds. My
I,
nephew finds him condescending.
I know.
Like, and my nephew's 5.
And if you want to do that, I mean, at least put a. I don't understand why this guy. Why did they give this guy the job?
His cousin.
Man, I feel so bad. I mean, like, if I ever see him for a second, I would be like, why has your life come to this? I mean, I'm sure you can
I
get
mean,
a
to be fair,
slightly.
if they offer me $1 million a year to do that, I'll do it.
But I feel
And
like
I
he
was
can
I
get
was stealing
800,000 to do something, a bit less embarrassing. Just do normal CNN stuff.
just the no usual approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean these people they look so fake, as especially the guy we were talking about at first. just the way he talks, everything, it
Yeah.
just seems so fake, so rehearsed, and kind of like early Tucker Carlson with his bow tie, and like, you could tell he's just trying to create a. I mean, we all try to create characters, blah blah blah, but just too much effort and
Yeah.
too rehearsed, perhaps. I don't know. That's the feeling I get. But to be honest, I don't think they're the worst people out there. Obviously, Rush Limbaugh or these people are far more awful. But
Yeah.
this self-righteousness and the
These guys are more
claims,
pathetic.
yeah, the claims to objectivity, and oh, it's like a goose mother.
Mhm.
Oh, fuck off! Like, you really wanna, yeah. Anyway,